Jackie Redmond did a sit-down interview with CM Punk, and Jackie asks about the favor. Punk does not want to talk about the favor, and it's between me and Paul Heyman. He's not going to shy away from a fight in regards to Seth, but he's confused by Seth's hatred for him because I don't hate Seth. And he tells the story of a 16-year-old Seth Rollins, then Tyler Black, coming to him, and, well, I guess a Colby Lopez at this point in 2002, coming to CM Punk to train with him. And Punk gets in the line for free, by the way. He wanted me to train him for free. What the hell? ROH Dojo here. Remembers when Seth was close to being fired, and I quote, shielded him from that. Seth is talented, but everything he's done, I've done better, and I did it before he got here. Seth filled a vacuum while I was gone, but the starter is back. The second stringer needs to sit back on the bench. This was just a great heel, smug CM Punk interview. I thought he was great here.
I wouldn't necessarily call it heel. It depends on who's your favorite, right? You know, if you love the Blackhawks, then
this was enticing you to see this man punched in the face type of promo. That's what it felt like to me.
It was the type that you wanted to see them fight at the very least. You know, I thought it was a very good interview between these two. They seem to have like pretty good rapport with each other. Jackie and CM Punk, obviously through their bond with the NHL. I thought Punk came across like, well, he gave us a lot of context about the relationship between he and Seth Rollins that has never really been made public, at least on WWE television. You know, we know that obviously history in ROH, everybody goes way back, you know, to ROH, and these two
next
are no
week
different.
Jackie Redmond has a sit-down interview with Kerry Silkin. The history between CM Punk and Seth Rollins.
You know what? Everybody's got history, right? And we also know. I like the way that he, I think, alluded to the Shield. We know the history of the Shield and how they were formed because of CM Punk's suggestion. But that's not really something that works in kayfabe because, to my knowledge, I don't think they've ever
not until they get the rights to the podcast. Can air that.
Yeah. But
is that going to be his big line to Roman Reigns before they have their eventual match?
I'm sure it will be. I'm sure.
If I had my way, it would be Chris Hero leading the bloodline.
Oh yeah, because Roman wasn't supposed to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but I mean, I thought Punk alluded to it nicely here so that it made sense for those who are aware, and if you don't, it doesn't really interrupt the story at all. But yeah, it sounded very organic, and he fed in those, like, I mean, they weren't so subtle jabs, but he did it in a way that, like, you know, like was very, very nice.
He wanted me to train him for free. No one ever brings that up. He wasn't even going to pay me. Seth is out, and he calls CM Punk a politician who put on a masterclass in how to spin the truth. And Punk has been doing that his entire life. He's a fraud and a con man. He said, I did go to him to be trained because he once was the best in the world. I looked up to and idolized CM Punk. He even helped me get into WWE. We were friends. And then it changed. He left this company. And what is the surefire way to kick off a several-year-long feud in WWE? Don't respond to phone calls and don't reply to text messages. All avenues that Seth explored in 2014, and he reveals, I was ghosted. I'm sorry. I don't care if he's the ultimate babyface. I have no sympathy for a man. I was ghosted.
Do you realize what matters to people these days? Okay, and what really gets people upset? It's ghosting texts. It's friendship bracelets, John. All right, that's how modern storytelling, modern combat storytelling.
You just wait. Paul Heyman, he's not going to forget about that phone and the lack of a call in 4 months by Roman. He said, CM Punk believed that if you didn't quit your dream job or had your thoughts in alignment with CM Punk, you were considered evil. And for the next 10 years, CM Punk tried to tear this company down. And he finally came back here when he failed at everything else, burnt every bridge, and the money was right. And the crowd to this starts chanting CM Punk and he said, I used to chant his name too. I looked up to him, but then I realized he was a fraud, and I wanted to do better than Punk. And everything Punk did, I've done twice. And I did something he never did. I headlined WrestleMania. And that was his message towards CM Punk.
I thought Rollins was outstanding. He's become so great at sounding real and passionate. And this is the guy who, still occasionally does the ha ha ha. But when he's on, and he's almost always on when it comes to, like, especially when it comes to CM Punk, you could tell there's real passion behind his words. And I don't doubt that a lot of his promo tonight was probably based in a lot of reality, and he's kind of stuck to that this entire time as sort of like the franchise champion at the time, somebody who's like, the sort of Iron Man who's there every single week. I'm sure he felt a personal slight every time he heard CM Punk say something about his company in the public, and he's using it now as part of the story and his motivation for why he will never forgive CM Punk. Basically, he's calling Punk a hypocrite, somebody who's only come back because he's burned all his other bridges. He's here for money because the company's doing well right now. That's all really believable for us. We kind of all assumed that was the reason why he hated him anyway. So he's just kind of verbalizing it. And I'm curious to know how Punk will answer for it. Has Punk, like, I guess, like, he sort of like answered for it, but I feel like they've been somewhat unsatisfying answers. So what is the CM Punk going to say when confronted with the accusation that you're only here for the paycheck?
I'm one Bill Phil. I mean, that's the cost of doing business with me. It is something, though, like with Sami Zayn attached here too, like, as you're diving more and more into all of this, like, the way they have to kind of tap dance around, like, Colt Cabana, which is, like, to me, like, for those that are, like, aware, like, it's such a, like, part of all of this as well, but obviously they're not going to introduce that into the story here.
What do you mean? Like, how did they have to tap dance around it?
I mean, I think it's just such a part of it would be great fuel for a Seth Rollins if he could just introduce all of that, like, people that your best friend that you ended up suing, like, that's it's
he could allude to it the way Punk alluded.
Well, I'm curious to see if they even allude to it.
But they don't need to.
They don't need to. They don't need to, and there's not really a payoff to doing so.
It's just good heat, I guess, for people who know. It's also interesting how he further confirms, I think, the WrestleMania main eventing being the elusive goal of CM Punk's. It's the end of Punk's journey, which was established in the Colt Cabana podcast as well. But by continuing to tease Punk about never having main evented to WrestleMania, we all want to see him do it that much more. However, I didn't particularly care for Seth freakin's long promo. I feel like forcing Punk back into this outsider role after a year where Punk's been carrying himself as the company mascot is an awkward fit. I'm also not eager for Punk to do another feud centered around a backstage beef from a previous life. The Drew feud was the best of this variety, and I'd like to see him do something with Gunther where he has to reckon with his own mortality. Interesting. Well, I mean, I think Punk versus Gunther is something that is a very real possibility down the line. But I also think, I don't think Seth versus Punk feels like a retread of Drew versus Punk, because I think they have different relationships, and Seth is a very different promo, and also, maybe counter to like what I was saying earlier, I think you're supposed to feel like Seth is in the wrong here, just the same way we felt Drew was in the wrong, because we're supposed to feel that Punk has redeemed himself somehow, and that he's not necessarily just here for money. He's here because he's a changed person, because people change, and we shouldn't completely just base him on the words that he said like 10, 11 years ago. I'm kind of curious to see this story explored a bit more, and I'm curious to see if by the end of this, if Seth stays a babyface, how he changes his mind, how he learns that, okay, I was wrong, and CM Punk is a different person now.
Yeah, I mean, they're picking up where they left off, where the feud was going to go, and I mean, they have never deviated from kind of Seth having this hatred for CM Punk. Like, he shouldn't have a different opinion of him after this past year. The fan base might, but that changes the fan dynamic, not the characters.
The Drew feud never really addressed that. Like, never address what Seth was bringing up this week, which is, you know, your sort of hypocrisy in coming back to a company that you disparaged for so many years. Like the Drew feud was over just the personal hatred the two had for each other and the constant warring that they had over like teasing each other's personal well friendship bracelets and the dog and AJ and all that. Didn't really do much to address the notion that Punk is here purely for money or because he has nowhere else to go. I'm hoping that this Seth feud addresses that.
If you like this video, consider joining our Patreon, the Post Wrestling Cafe. Multiple bonus podcasts every week, ad-free shows, and access to our full archive. Otherwise, a like and subscribe is much appreciated. Thank you for watching.